Hey guys, okay, so in the interest of saving time, I've already pre-filled in some of the vocab right here, so if you need to pause in a moment to write it down, please do so. Some of this stuff should be review. A polynomial is an expression that can have constants, variables, and exponents, and each term is separated by a positive or negative sign, or plus or minus. A term can be a single number. It can be a coefficient and variable multiplied together. A coefficient is the number that would be in front of the variable. A constant is a number without a variable, so a number that just stands by itself. A leading coefficient is the coefficient of the term with the largest exponent. So if you have multiple exponents, the leading coefficient will be the one that's attached to the biggest exponent. And then the degree is that biggest exponent I just talked about. So pause here if you need. I'm going to start labeling. So down here we have a polynomial. This whole thing is a polynomial. And I'm just going to start filling in the vocab. So the next thing is terms. And so right here we have a term with the 5x cubed. We have a term at 4x squared. At 2x is another term. And our last term is the 10 by itself. These are all terms. Next is definition of coefficient. So coefficients, for example, this 5 is a coefficient. This 4 is a coefficient. And this 2 is a coefficient. Okay. This 10 that's over here at the end, that's by itself, it's just a 10. It's a constant. The leading coefficient, in this case I look at that biggest exponent, which is the 3, so the leading coefficient is the 5. And last but not least, the degree is the highest exponent, so that 3 is our degree. Okay. If you need to pause to label yours, go ahead and pause here. These first set of questions are just asking us to identify how many terms there are. So remember, every time you see a plus or minus, that's a new term. So in this case here, I have 4 terms. Go ahead and practice those last 2 by yourselves. This one's a pretty simple concept. If you need to pause. I'm going to move on to the next topic. Okay, so adding. When we add polynomials together, you always identify the biggest one. In this case, for the first question, it's this guy here. And you always want that one on top. And move that smaller one underneath it so that the variables and exponents match. So for example, this x squared and this x squared, I want them on top of each other. So 4x squared will go underneath that negative x squared. Plus 3x goes under 5x, and plus 2 goes under that minus 3. Because now that's gone, and I can just add straight down. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. 5x plus 3x is a positive 8x. Negative x squared plus 4x is a positive 3x squared. And nothing happened with 2x cubed, so we just bring 2x cubed down. Now we have 2 questions underneath to answer. It wants to know what the leading coefficient is. And remember that comes from that 2 because it's the coefficient of the highest exponent. And our constant is that number that's always by itself. He's usually at the end. So in this case, it is a negative 1. Go ahead and practice those other addition problems and identifying your leading coefficient, your constant. Let me know if you need help. Pause here before we move on to subtraction. Okay, so subtraction. It's a similar concept, but there's just one extra step. We need to, in this case, distribute this negative into each of the terms that's behind it. So that 2x cubed will become a negative 2x cubed. That negative x squared will have a double negative, which makes a positive. So we'll have, let's try that again. We'll have a positive x squared. That 5x, instead of that plus in front of it, will change to a negative or a minus. And that minus 3 will now become a plus 3. So I just distributed that negative all the way across. Then I take that smaller, or that first polynomial, and I place it underneath. And I match, again, my variables and exponents. So 4x squared plus 3x plus 2. And now I can add straight down again. So I turned it into an addition question. So 3 plus 2 is 5. That's a positive 5. Negative 5x plus 3x is a negative 2x. X squared plus 4x squared is a positive 5x squared. And nothing's happening with that negative 2x cubed, so we just bring it down. Again, it wants to know that leading coefficient, it wants to know the constant. In this case, the leading coefficient did not change, it stayed that negative 2. But if you notice, our constant did change, and it's a positive 5 now. Don't forget to distribute that negative into that second polynomial. If you need help with anything, please pause the video and ask questions. And if not, go ahead and continue to your virtual lesson when you finish.